Welcome to Talking Aussie Farming. I'm your host, Jono Weinstock. Our podcast is where we talk all things Australian agriculture. And today we have a special guest, Dwain Duxson. Welcome, Dwain.
Thanks, Jono. Thanks for having me along.
It's a pleasure to have you. Bit of an intro on Dwain. Mike Hussey's known as Mr. Cricket, and I thought we might... don't know if you've ever been nicknamed Mr. Ag before. Quite the entrepreneurial journey from sheep farming to e-commerce, building a marketplace business, to building a lending business to farmers, and now publisher, literally having readers across Australia reading your interesting agri content with the Farmers Club. So welcome today.
Thank you. Looking forward to this.
Great. Now, you've got more experience than me, Dwain. You're a publisher yourself, written and podcast experience. So if I can get a few tips from you, that would be great. But maybe to start, just keen to understand your background in farming and then, quite the entrepreneurial journey, how we moved into these other ventures.
So I was brought up on a farm, about a 7,000 acre mixed farm at a place called Manu, and our farm we mainly run stud sheep, so merino sheep, and my brother runs a farm now, and I actually succeeded from the farm when I was 35, I reckon it was. So I worked on the farm from when I left school until about 34 years of age, and then moved on to what I thought were greener pastures and left my brother to it, and he's doing a very good job.
Okay, interesting. And so I guess, what did you love about farming and what prompted you to find opportunities off farm?
Yeah, I did enjoy farming. It was like something that was in our blood, and the Duxsons have been there for 5 or 6 generations and I think 120 or 30 years. So I really enjoyed the farming side of things. But in the merino stud game, you could only serve a certain amount of customers because the merino stud industry is only so big, and we were selling genetics and rams and things like that, and probably had, selling up to 700 rams at our peak, serving about probably 120 or 30 clients. But I had this thing that I wanted to serve thousands of clients, and back then I discovered the internet and just saw a bit of a gap in the market and decided that I wanted to do something else. And my wife and young family, we uprooted from the farm when I was 35 and went and lived 350 k's away from the farm at Yarrawonga, and that's where I started my other businesses. So it's been one of those fantastic journeys, and it was a big bold decision to leave the farm because they're so secure. I remember driving out the driveway and you're looking in the rear vision mirror at lots of certainty in the farm, and looking out the front window at uncertainty because we didn't really know what we were going to do at the time.
Is there anything you miss most about not being on farm day to day?
I quite enjoy what I do now, and I'll get to that a bit later. But no, look, I get to go back there. We had a great succession, my brother and mother and father, so we get to go back there on regular occasions and go and participate. But no, I don't necessarily miss it. I live on a small farm now, and I started going down the sheep path, but then I realised there's a lot of work involved, so I sort of handballed that role to a guy who's adjusting the place. But it's just a wonderful industry, and I can see why people love it.
Yeah, look, I did get the opportunity to go to your brother's farm. It was about 1.5 years ago in Kenya, Victoria, about a 3.5 hour drive from Melbourne. It was a fabulous event that you put on behalf of your businesses and companies. It was in the sheep shed. That was really an A-class event. And the best bit was instead of using a microphone, there was a brand new Kookaburra shiny cricket ball using. And if you're a cricket nut like both of us, you get a little bit excited when you see a new rock. So you had my attention straight away, but just the quality of the guests and the content, and people literally travelling from all over Australia to get a few hundred paying people to turn up at that farm was really sensational. So it was a memorable experience. And I've got to say, even afterwards, just the social aspect with the barbie and the beers and, having a room full of agricultural students there. And it was really a great educational event, and which is partly what inspired us to do this content, is just learning and sharing our knowledge. So I guess what motivated and inspired you to put on that event?
Yeah, we put on one. We were going to start running an event. This is through our farm tender business. We had it all set up to go during COVID, but obviously that came along, so we missed that one. And then we did one in Bendigo the year before that one, which went off really well. I remember about 2 weeks before, I had this guy up to MC the whole show and, ask lots of questions and do all that. And then I just had this thing come to me and into my head, and I thought, bugger it, I've got to do this. I can't let someone else do this. This is our show, and, I've got to be interviewing the people. I know the subjects, so I decided to do it all myself, which worked out fine. Our first one went really well. Probably had 200 people there, all paying customers, and we decided to do it again, and this time in our family farm woolshed, which was brand new. You saw the venue; it was a fabulous venue, and that went off really well. And there's sort of a story to the cricket ball, because we just had 2 wool bales up there up the front, and when you sort of hands free, you're looking for something to do, and I just thought the day before that I've got to give these people something to sort of hold on to, because they had, the microphones on the collar and things like that rather than holding. And you just, to use your hands, I just thought a cricket ball would be good, and I gave it to each one of them. No one actually dropped it, which was good. And they were tossing it around and things like that. So that was the idea behind the cricket ball. But that was, that was a great event. We haven't done one since, and I've probably shied away from them and heading down the podcast track more so these days, because putting on these events is very stressful, not knowing how many's going to turn up, and they just take probably 6 or 7 months to organise in advance.
Yeah,
and I thought,
huge.
You could jump on the what we're on Riverside now, you can do a podcast, you can do that in, under an hour and without limited preparation.
Yeah, correct. But I will say it was quite memorable and enjoyed it on many levels. Interested to learn more about farm tender. So I guess you've started that, from what I can tell, around 2010, 2011, when I guess the marketplace businesses were booming, early 2000s. And so you've launched at quite a growth stage, and it's still going today, which says a lot. And just keen to learn what kind of gap that filled, and maybe some quirky stories. I'm sure you've seen some items that have been bought and sold, some pretty quirky items and prices. So, maybe to start off, just share, I guess, how you got into that business.
Well, as I said before, when I was, we're selling rams, and I wanted to serve thousands of customers, and I thought there's got to be, and discovering the internet, there's got to be some way we can connect agricultural people up, right across Australia. And I left the farm at 35 and went off and moved to Yarrawonga, as I said, and I didn't have the marketplace thing in mind. I sort of started a directory and a couple other small things that were involved in the internet, and they never really went anywhere. And then I started a business, I think it was called Product Tender, and what farmers would do is they'd go and list what they wanted to buy. So let's say it's 200 tonne MAP fertiliser, they'd go and list it, and then suppliers would go and put quotes on. And that worked okay for a little while, but then after, certain suppliers, kept losing the bids, they would just give up and say, this is no good. I'm not getting any results here. So they would just, they wouldn't inquire anymore. So, and then we're at a field day once. We did a lot of promotion through the field days at that particular time, and this farmer come up to me, and I still to this day wish I knew who it was, but he was a member of our website, and he said, "Why can't I sell stuff on your website?" And I just thought, I thought about it for a while, and then it hit me after the field day finished that we need to be selling stuff on this website. So I got together with my IT developer, and we hooked into it and turned the website around in a month and then started selling things. And we've sort of, it's one of those pivot moments where we'll never look back. And there's a couple of things that happened that sort of, cemented our place in the market after that. But that was the start of it.
Right. Well, it's very fascinating. It's not an easy journey building a two-sided marketplace, getting listings and then getting eyeballs to actually, make a buck out of the transactions itself. So it is really hard yakka. So it's an amazing effort, and the fact that it's still going and has a great brand and there's plenty of quality listings. So I do have a bit of a squeeze every now and then. It's like the old Trading Post,
Yep.
which was around and used to be, quite interesting. Is there any, have you got any quirky stories of products that have come and gone on that platform?
I have. Look, there's lots of things that happen over the years, but I suppose the things that sell the most and sell the best are the older items. So, and one of those would be the 2388 headers. I reckon we would have sold 150 of them over the years. And I actually looked on there today and we sold one today. So these are old headers that farmers love because they're so simple to use and they just go and they're easy to fix. Another one with 4400 John Deere tractors. They're a big seller as well. So yeah, those are the ones. But look, quirky stories. Look, it's none come to mind, but there is plenty that would have happened over the years.
Oh my God, over the years. Well, I must say there must be some interesting listings, say during drought, for example, where there are people trying to buy and sell and access hay, and maybe during COVID when there was a mass shortage of equipment where prices kind of skyrocketed. What was it like during those periods?
Well, I think back when we started this business, we're very lucky that we entered into everything. And when you said about starting a marketplace, it is very difficult. I agree with that. But I was lucky to start off with a database of a couple of thousand people or farmers before I started. And then we actually had a bit of a break when this lentil buyer came to us and wanted to buy. He knew there was lots of lentils out there. It was a period where there was lots of number 2 lentils in Wimmera farmers and South Australian farmers' silos that they couldn't sell, and this guy was a keen buyer and he wanted me to access all the farmers to buy this product. And I reckon we sold probably 10,000 tonne, and that really put us on the map and really set us up. So that was a sort of our introduction into how we got going, and it was just me at the start, and I probably worked by myself for 2 years, and then it was one of those businesses where bootstrapped. So once you get enough revenue, you employ someone, and then, get a bit more revenue, employ another person. So that's how we did it from the start. And it's sort of, a few lucky breaks, but lots of hard work as well.
Yeah. Okay. And today, what are the key items that you're seeing that are being listed and sold on a more regular basis?
You mentioned about when there's a drought comes, we sort of, as I said it before, lucky enough to do everything. It's probably the smartest thing I've ever done, is set it up so it does everything. Because when a drought comes along, people do buy lots of hay and feed grain, and then the machinery side of things drops off. So, and then when good times, you sell much less hay and feed grain, and then the machinery and all the other items come into play. Like we do fertiliser and chemical and things like that as well. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, that's why.
Oh, that's very clever. Now, after farm tender, tell me about the next entrepreneurial venture. Was that Delay Pay?
It was, and I think that's been going about 6 or 7 years now. And I'd always, when you run one of these businesses, you're always, watching how they work and trying to get an understanding about how farmers go about things. And I've got this theory that farmers pay, but it's just a matter of when. So some will pay on the spot when they're supposed to. Others will, be 7 days late. Others will be month late, 2 months late. Some will be 6 months late. So, and I thought, why not have a business whereby the people that want to pay later on, have the ability to do so, but they get charged a fee for doing that because it's not fair. Because the seller wants to be paid on the spot. That's how it should work, and it's better for our business if the seller gets paid on the spot. So I sort of had this thing, and I went around to a lot of the fintech companies trying to pitch this, but they couldn't get it. They all wanted security and all those sorts of things. And I had a couple of meetings with this guy called Kelsey Miller, and he was trying to pitch his business at me, which was an agency disrupting, livestock agency disrupted business, but it never got going. But I kept saying to him, I've got this idea about this afterpay for farmers, and he sort of didn't twig onto it. And then after a while, I sort of kept at him, and he said, yeah, I reckon I've had to think about this, and I reckon we can get something going. And we sort of did it through invoice financing for a start, an invoice financing company, and we're actually a trader of goods. So we buy the goods off the seller and sell them to the buyer. So that's how we operate. But the first day we launched, we got 5 new customers and 5 deals. So I've sort of tried a lot of things in my time because I've had a decent sized database, and a lot of things haven't worked. But this thing just took off from day one.
Amazing. Okay, but I guess you had a deep understanding of the farmers' needs from the start, knowing there's going to be a shortage of cash at some stage to buy inputs for their farm, which they need quickly. And I guess you had the insight that knowing certain farmers, they're going to pay, it's just a matter of when. So that's really good knowledge. And you're filling a really important gap. So, we've worked alongside you on a number of similar clients and seen Delay Pay in there helping farmers, and we've referred a bit of work from time to time when a farmer needs money quickly, and you've really stepped up to the plate and helped them. So it's an invaluable service, and I'm guessing the feedback you've had from farmers is they're very grateful, and it's another form of access to credit they probably couldn't otherwise get.
No, and farmers use it for a lot of different reasons. To iron out a bit of their lumpy cash flow, and and ours is short term, so it goes for a maximum of 6 months. So it's quite a different product to what you see on the market, and it's insured as well. So if anything goes wrong, and I think we've done nearly 120 million pumped through that in the last 6 or 7 years, and we've only ever had I think 2 or 3 defaults. I started out working in that business and helping Kelsey out, and then I've since sort of moved on from that business and letting those guys run it, because it's one of those businesses where you got to be in there all the time to get to understand what's going on.
But I guess the deep insight and knowledge that you've got would go a long way, and it is a successful business, and it's great to see it thrive and grow. Now, tell me about your passion for writing. You're quite the journalist now with the Farmers Club. You've got quite a loyal following, and from what I understand, you're up releasing content every day without fail at before I'm awake, so roughly 5 o'clock from what I understand. So you've still got the farmer in you with that consistency and reliability, and from what I can tell, the readership's growing. So tell me about the passion for writing and communicating with farmers all around Australia.
Yeah, I've always been keen on the writing side of things. I've written a couple of cricket/gossip columns when I was living at Marnoo and playing there, and then when I moved to Yarrawonga, it was called the Square Leg Files, and I took that there, and it got printed in the paper every week. But it's sort of, the editor didn't like it in the end because it was, there was some things that were on the edge that we wrote about. But right. I've always been passionate about writing, and I've always written newsletters with our businesses. And when I was on the farm, I did one then. When I started Farm Tender, I put out a weekly newsletter and got some really good responses from that. And I thought I can take this further. So I started doing a daily one for Farm Tender. This is probably 4 or 5 years ago, and that went really well, and it's still running today. So I thought I could make a sort of a side hustle business out of this. So I started one called the Farmers Club, and probably about 2.5 years ago I started that one, and just as a free newsletter. And probably the last I think 18 months I sent it, put it under subscription, and people pay $44 a month, and they get our newsletter 6 days a week. And I write 3 or 4 articles each day, and we put in all the replies from our farmers, because our farmers send in lots of replies to our stories. People like reading that, and also aggregate all the news and information that's happened in the newspapers or off social media, or any sort of interesting documents that we receive during the day, and we put it in a short form newsletter that farmers get at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they can go through and read it really quickly, and then they're up with everything and all the ideas and the news and the information, anything that happened that day, the day before. So it's I reckon I've fallen across something here. It works well.
Oh, it's very impressive. I think because it's anticipated and expected every day. But I guess the fun bit would be being able to read and stay on top of all the content every day to decide what to publish the next day. So that in itself probably positions you as the leading authority on ag news. I wish I had time to keep up with all of my subscriptions, but it would be nice to, I guess the problem you're solving is you're helping summarise it in a concise way on a daily basis, whereas right now I've got subscriptions to a lot, and there's a lot of news to stay on top of, and it can be challenging. So I guess if I ever needed to know the price of something or what's happening in the market or what the topical issues are, you're kind of the go-to, which is in itself quite an important role as a trusted and respected authority in ag. That's why I called you not Mr. Cricket, but Mr. Ag. No, it is very impressive. I guess based on you've got such wide knowledge and experience in ag, just keen to pick your brain on, I guess, and I got asked recently on a panel, where do you think farming's going, and where has it come from, say the last 25 years to today, and then what are the major things that you can see happening realistically in the next, say, generation? Keen to hear your thoughts.
Lots happened over the last 25 years, with precision agriculture and the domination of cropping, probably more so at the expense of sheep rather than cattle. But that's been a big one, and the evolution of that, and the consolidation of farms, has been a big one as well. And technology, technology's a part of it all. But yeah, where's it going? Look, it's only going to accelerate. I think automation will come in, and things like I wrote a story which will come out tomorrow, and you'll have a subscription by tomorrow, Jono. But one about virtual fencing, which they're doing some fabulous things in Tassie. I'm pretty sure they're doing it in New Zealand as well, and the dairy farmers are doing it, and they're specialists in the pasture management side of things. But what I wrote about is, if you get this technology, this virtual fencing technology in the hands of beef cattle and sheep farmers, that's going to make a huge difference to their business, because with all due respects, they're not great managers of pasture, most of them.
Right.
And by having this sort of tool, will turn them into really good managers of pasture, because, as I said before, the dairy farmers are doing it. They're great at managing pasture. But this virtual fencing thing is making them much better at it as well. So, it's got so much upside. So lots of things like that. You can't really put your finger on any one thing, but yeah, it's definitely changing.
Okay. Well, I guess at the end of the day, do you think farmers will be more profitable in the next generation as costs keep going up, and the commodity prices move around and increase slowly over time? And is it enough to keep the next generation on the land?
Yeah, look, I think so. I have this saying that the good ones find a way, and that's what happens. That's been the evolution since farming start. Or the good ones find a way. But probably another thing going forward in the future is, within a couple of years, we'll have full mobile service throughout Australia, and that'll make a huge difference to agriculture. So that'll something that will catapult it forward. But as far as profitability is concerned, it's farming's a low margin business. It's hard to make money on the production side. The good ones do, and farming over the last 20 odd years has probably been relying on capital gain more so as a growth side of things, and that's what the corporate guys have come into farming for and done very well out of. But costs are something that we'll need to keep a close eye on as they keep growing. Things like dairy farmers with their energy costs and things like that are getting up there. So look, the good ones will find a way, and we'll keep surviving, and it'll work out. No problem whatsoever.
Okay. Well, it's been around for thousands of years and generations.
That's it.
And the food, the world needs to eat right, and Australia produces good quality food. So, and I guess farmers have benefited from land appreciation. And the real estate sector in ag has been the leading performer across all real estate asset classes in the last 20 years. So I'm sure that's enough, opportunity for the next generation.
Where do you see land prices going forward? You're in that game. Like, where are they now? They've probably levelled out a bit, wouldn't you say?
They have. There was a recent report that just came out a couple of weeks ago. I think it's the Rural Property Report. Yep. And overall across Australia, it's levelled out, and in some parts declined slightly, but in other regions, it's still increased. So relative to other real estate sectors, agriculture's resilient and strong. There is not huge declines, although there are pockets of land, but that's also based on the data available. But interestingly, over the last 20 years, farmland took off. And an interesting point is during drought 2018 to 2020, so farmers couldn't make a buck off the land, but the value of the land went up, at least some parts 50% plus. Whereas you look at the office market, particularly during COVID, and tenancies disappear, and office buildings are selling at half the value. So I wouldn't mind having a business where the value of your business doubles when you lose money for 3 consecutive years. So, and what underpins that is, the demand for good quality Australian agricultural land, and it's a long-term gain, and it's a cycle. So I think the smart investors were happy to sit on it. So it's a resilient asset sector that we understand and enjoy. Question for you: given all of your knowledge and experience in owning farms and running businesses, if you had your time again or an open checkbook, what type of farm would you go into today, or be quite happy for your kids to get involved in? Is it irrigation? Is it dry land? Is it cattle, or is it some quirky new crop that might not be around in 10 years?
Don't know. I like the idea of new quirky crops, and we've seen some good ones, over the last probably 20, 25 years. Lentils has been a big one for a lot of farmers. Cotton as well, chickpeas to a lesser extent, and things like that. I wouldn't mind right at this point in time being in the livestock game. So Simon Quilty, who's a well-known commentator on livestock in Australia, is painting a fairly strong picture for the next 5 to 10 years. I think livestock farms are becoming more intensified, so they're doing more with containment, lot feeding and things like that. That's part of the whole program now, which it wasn't probably 10 years ago. So that's probably where I'd be investing at this point in time. The cropping guys have had a very, very good run. They've had some 4 or 5 fantastic years, season depending, but they're starting, there's a lot of grain in the world at the moment, so prices, come back, and they're probably going to find a little bit tough for a couple of years, according to a couple of the experts. So I'll probably be in that intensive sort of livestock field. That's where I'd be pumping my money at this point in time.
Okay, interesting. And your thoughts on horticulture?
Don't know hardly anything about horticulture.
Right, okay.
So I'll leave that one alone. All I know, it's just like any other form of farming, it's tough.
Yeah. Now, an interesting thing we find about farmers when we first speak to them is they can often be quite untrusting to people from the city and quite grumpy. But once we go out and meet them and get to know them, they can't shove enough lamingtons down our throat, and they won't let us leave because they really enjoy the understanding and the empathy to actually help them solve a problem in their business. But I must say, initially, it's a fascinating issue we have to deal with. But once we've met them, they're more likely to take our call and respond and be helpful. How do we, is that likely to continue? And what do you think's driving that lack of mistrust from, say, bankers or people from the city?
Look, it is. I understand where you're coming from, and when I started the farm tender business, and no one knew who we were, and there's still quite a few that don't. You would have that. I would have that same problem. So you'd have to build up a rapport with these people, and you get those gruff ones which you mentioned. And I found them more of a challenge on the phone when I was talking to them on the phone, rather than. So you just sort of half give it to them back a bit, and they'd sort of. They'd sort of warm to you after a while, and knowing that you weren't a threat, you could be trusted, and once you explain what you did and referred other people knew of you and things like that, it sort of gained their trust, and a lot of those guys they end up some of your best customers, the ones that were your hardest ones to get. So
that's right. Okay. So in 25 years' time,
keep at it.
Just got to keep at it. Yeah, no, well, it's quite enjoyable getting to know them and working with them and helping them. It's quite rewarding. I guess in 25 years' time, are they likely to be less grumpy? Or I guess, there's daily challenges. It's kind of relentless. There's long hours and it's hard work. And I can imagine putting your heart and soul into a crop and then having a troubled season or two would be incredibly frustrating at times.
That'll get easier. I think what will happen though is the next generations coming through are more business orientated, so they're more switched on. So you won't be able to put one over them, Jono.
Right. Okay. Very good. All right. Well, Dwain, thanks very much for today. It's really interesting picking your brain. I'll just share another quick story. It's quite a small world in agriculture. And one of the motivations for me to start this podcast was, I guess, to help educate others and share the learnings as we've travelled the country learning about ag right across the country. And we have a mutual friend, I won't mention his name, but I was at university, a very naive, we were actually studying a sports course at Deakin Uni before I went into the world of commerce. And he was from the country, and there was a lot of country kids at Deakin Uni, and it was great getting to know him, and it was quite fascinating learning about life on the land and quite the lack of knowledge we had back then. And so once we realised we knew the same person, we had a bit of a laugh, and the irony now is we're very familiar with his region and have helped farmers in the region, and now we're full-time agricultural. Run a full-time ag business for a number of years now, and quite passionate and knowledgeable in the sector. So it's kind of the full 360, but it is quite a small industry, isn't it?
It is, and you've done well, because a lot of people get frustrated, coming from outside ag and coming in, because it's not an easy industry to, let's put it this way, like it's agriculture doesn't let you grow fast. So if you've got a business where you want to grow really fast, don't come into agriculture, because it's incremental growth and it takes time, and it seems to be one of those industries that you'll get there in the end, but you've got to have lots of patience and hard work, and like you said before, you get people to trust you and trust what you do. So you've done well to come in and succeed.
Thanks, Dwain. Now, can we talk cricket careers for a moment? We're both aging, aging cricketers, but refuse to retire. Love a game here or there. Tell me, are you still playing and keen to put the whites on and keep going?
No. I think I'm 55 now, and I think I retired at 51 or 2. So yeah, it just comes a time when you got to draw the line and say that's enough is enough. And I think you did your quad or calf the other day, and that might be a bit of a sign.
I did. I think the sign was calling for a runner, and then the runner running me out and having to walk off. That was, in all my years of cricket, I've never seen it happen. And but there's always next week. So back to the physio. And hopefully be back on the park. But you're a long time retired, and I keep getting roped back in. So the passion's still there.
No, it's a great game, and yeah, just I've got so many friends from cricket over the years, and I absolutely love playing cricket, and just the competition, the competitiveness, and there's the observing of batsmen and bowlers, and their different idiosyncrasies and how to work them out and things like that. It's sort of like business in a sense.
It's an incredible game. I must admit, when I was playing grade cricket, I played with and against many talented cricketers from the bush, and it was a great opportunity to see how they, how they played. They were tough characters. And the fun part playing cricket in the city was pre-season every year. We would head to the bush, somewhere a bit drier, where we could get on some turf wickets. And I have very fond memories of playing in lots of regional areas. When in Melbourne there was no chance of getting on a wicket, so they were very fun trips where you'd put your hand on the bed and a puff of dust would come up at the local motel. Sometimes we're young kids on budgets. With 20 or 30 guys staying at the local motel and tearing up the town for 1 or 2 nights. Fond memories of playing in the bush, and those grounds and clubs still host a lot of clubs pre-season. So
I remember when I was playing up at Yarrawonga Marwala, I was a curator as well, so I used to be rolling wickets in September for you guys. Yeah, so no, they were fun times. So yeah,
fun times. All right, Dwain, thanks very much for coming on the show. I'm really impressed with your background. I recommend to our listeners to sign up to Dwain's publication, The Farmers Club, and check out his podcast. Very knowledgeable and experienced in ag. So thanks, Dwain.
No, thanks for having me, Jono, and well done on your first hosting gig. Go and listen to a couple of my first podcasts. They're pretty rough and ready. So you've done really well, and you'll only improve. So well done.
Excellent. Thanks, Dwain. See ya.
Have a great day.